Hello and welcome to another live Smaulgld stream. It is Monday the 22nd of April 2019. Tonight's topic, the Central Bank of Russia adds more gold to reserves. Now tonight we're going to just mix it up a little bit because I have so many charts for you tonight on Russia gold, Chinese gold, Indian gold. It's going to take some time to go through them, and a lot of people, they come to the Smaulgld channel maybe for the first time and they see the title and then they spend an enormous amount of time in advance of the topic on the news of the day or cryptocurrencies or gold and silver prices. And I know the regulars don't mind that, but for the people who want to see and learn about the Central Bank of Russia, in deference to those viewers, just this one time, we're going to just get straight into the Central Bank of Russia's gold reserve acquisition and March and over the past few years. And then tomorrow we'll pick up on the news and the gold and silver stories and the cryptocurrency stories and the economic stories and the market stories. So let's get right into the Central Bank of Russia and what they are doing, have been doing in March specifically, but also the last few years. And then we're going to compare it to some of the other gold acquisition that goes on around the world. A lot of people have this, central banks are buying gold. That is all I need to know. And remember, the big story they keep talking about is last year central banks bought more gold than they had purchased since 1967. Well, okay. What happened to the gold price in 2018? Nothing. It was pretty much flat. Central bank gold buying to date has not had any influence on the gold price or really even the physical gold demand. The amounts that central banks buy are not that great, and they are clustered in three central banks, and they are Russia and Kazakhstan, and only recently, again, the People's Bank of China. Most of the gold buying in the world, that is physical gold buying, occurs in China and in India, but not at the central bank level. So we're going to take a look, though. However, Russia is, the Central Bank of the Federation of Russia is the world's largest gold purchaser among central banks. But then again, Russia has the third largest gold production, and Russia's under sanctions, and Russia has been de-dollarizing as a result and is adding gold to reserves. So let's take a look at what Russia has been doing recently, and then also take a look at the past few years. Just quickly, the gold price today, it was flat, is at $12.74, so it's below the 1300 mark. Silver also pretty much flat as well, still below the $15 mark at $14.99, and the unsustainable out of whack gold silver ratio, said with full sarcasm, is at 85 to 1 as a result. All right, let's take a look at what Russia's been doing first since 1994. It's a good way of looking at it. It gives you a big perspective. Oh, that's the wrong one. That's not the one you want to see. That doesn't have the numbers on it. I've got the one with the numbers, and we need to take a look at that one, which is this one. Okay. Now, Russia only really started, the Central Bank of the Federation of Russia only really started adding gold to reserves after the financial crisis in a large number. Now, the Central Bank of Russia has had difficulties. Since the fall of the Soviet Union, Russia is only recently been able to get its finances in order. It's had issues back and forth. As you can see, they were net sellers of gold in the late 1990s, selling 48 tons, 44 tons, 30 tons in 1998, 1999, and 2000 respectively. They sold 35 tons in 2002. They basically were out of the gold market in 2003, 4, and 5, and they only starting to add gold as the financial crisis hit in 2008, and they backed off a bit on their purchases from 2011, 12, and 13, and then they really ramped it up in 2014 with 171 tons, 208 tons in 2015, 199 tons in 2016, and 224 tons in 2017, and last year, 271 tons. Now, where are they getting all of this gold? As I mentioned, Russia is the third largest gold mining country in the world. And you can see they've done a good job of increasing their gold reserve, gold mining production from the 150 to 200 ton a year mark from about 10 years ago. And more recently, they're in the 250 to 300 ton range for annual production. And I believe this year is the first year, 2019, where they'll actually have some gold that they can export to India and China. But pretty much not just that, they also may start importing gold. And that would reflect the fact that they've already earmarked some gold to sell to China and India. But if they want to add more than the 271 tons a year, and they've earmarked some gold sales for China and India, then they might have to start importing gold. Now, that might have somewhat of an impact on the physical gold market. But keep in mind, these numbers, we're talking about 3,500 to 4,200 tons of gold mined each year, including the Russian numbers. So when Russia adds, 271 tons of gold, they're not putting a big strain on the gold. It's about 5-6% of the gold demand, of the gold supply, and they're getting it from their own mines, which the world isn't counting on getting any of that gold from anyway. So it's not a big deal in terms of the gold market. Russia adding gold is a bigger deal, not in terms of the gold market, but more in the geopolitical sense, and perhaps its impact on not necessarily the dollar, but on what Russia's doing in order to maintain itself and to avoid sanctions, to remain a stable financial country in spite of the fact that they're under sanctions and their economy is not very diverse. It's mostly oil and agriculture. They sell a lot of oil to Europe, and natural gas as well. So just keep in mind that these numbers that we're talking about, central banks and also Russian gold reserves, are not a major impact, or not very impactful on the physical gold market. But you can see the last few years, Russia, 2016, 17, and 18, has added over 80 and up to 86% of their overall mining production straight into the central bank's coffers. All right, let's see where their reserve position is as well. So they have financial reserves. They're under sanctions. Their economy is not booming by any stretch of the imagination. There's some inflation. It's not out of control, but it's higher than the U.S. stated inflation. But nonetheless, from 2016 to 2019, they've managed to add $100 billion worth of reserves while selling the bulk of their U.S. treasuries and adding gold and also other currencies and other reserves to their position. So they have almost $500 billion in reserves. That's a decent amount, and about 18 to 19% of those reserves are in gold. Okay, so that's basically what Russia has been doing in light of what's going on with its economy and what's going on with the rest of the world. The other thing I want to show you is where that puts Russia in terms of central banks. And here we have the gold reserve chart by central bank, the top 10. You can see India rounds out the top 10. They have 607 tons. But as we're going to see in a minute, what the Indian central bank, or the Reserve Bank of India, has is clearly nowhere near the amount of overall gold that's in that country. It's estimated that there may be up to 25,000 tons of gold in India, just as it's estimated to have about the same amount in China, about 25,000 tons, maybe 30,000 tons in each of those countries, which would be, if you take those countries and add in Germany, I believe, you have about a third of the world's gold just in those three countries. But a misnomer, you have to keep this clear, is what a central bank has is not the nation's gold. It is the government of that nation's gold. So India doesn't have all the gold in India, and China's People's Bank of China doesn't have all the gold in China. And it's a cottage industry for all these people to go out there and say, China's lying, Sun Tzu, they've got more gold, they're lying. No, that's just the People's Bank of China. And they report 1,885 tons. And we're going to see what they've been reporting versus what the Central Bank of Russia is reporting. But if you take a look at the chart here, the Netherlands, 612, they haven't added any gold in decades, although they did repatriate their gold from the U.S. a couple of years ago. India had not added gold for 10 years, and they've added about 40 to 50 tons of gold in the past 6 months to their reserves. Japanese have not added gold. The Bank of Japan, for decades, they're at 765 tons. Switzerland has not added gold for over 2 decades, and they sold 60% of their gold when they joined the IMF in, I think it was 2000, 2001. China has been adding. The People's Bank of China, they added big amounts from 2009 to 2016. They held off adding until the end of last year, 2018, and since then they've added about 45 tons. The Central Bank of Russia has been adding gold at a very swift pace, and we're going to take a look at a monthly chart, and you can see how much gold they've been adding. They pretty much add every month, although there's a few months that they don't add gold. The one country that's added gold every month for the past 6 years is Kazakhstan. We're not going to talk about them tonight. We're going to get into them at the end of the month when they report again. France and Italy, those gold numbers have not changed. And in fact, they're not allowed to change according to Mario Draghi of the ECB, who says you can't manage your gold reserves on your own. You got to talk it to us at the ECB first. IMF is 2,814 tons. That's a result of other countries having to deposit gold with the IMF in order to be in the IMF. Germany, 3,370 tons. They haven't added gold in decades either. However, they sell about 4 or 5 tons a year back to their government so that the government can mint gold coins. The United States, the Fed owns no gold. Now remember, the Fed is unlike all the other central banks in the world in that it is not run by the government or by the Treasury. It is an independent bank that has been created by statute, and it's essentially outsourced. Congress has outsourced its monetary policy to the, quote, independent central bank, the Federal Reserve. But the Federal Reserve does not own the gold. That gold is owned by the U.S. Treasury. There's about 4,500 tons at Fort Knox. There's a few thousand tons at West Point, Denver, a couple other locations. And that's where you get to 8,133.5 tons. Okay. That gives you the background on what's been going on with Russia and its gold. And now we're going to get into the more recent additions. And then we're going to compare it to China, and we're going to compare it to India, and we're going to talk about gold premiums in China. Well, here you can see the inexorable rise of the Central Bank of Russia's gold reserves from June 2015 to March 2019, going from 1,281 tons in June of 2015. That was the first month that the Central Bank of China, added gold. That's why I'm using that particular starting point. And since then, they've added about almost 900 tons, about 886 tons, I believe, all the way up to 2,167 tons, which you saw places them fifth. They leapfrogged past the People's Bank of China as a result of the People's Bank of China selling $1 trillion worth of reserves the last few years. And during that time period, they didn't sell any gold, but they didn't add any gold. And don't listen to this. They're lying about their gold position. There's no reason for them to lie about their gold position. There's plenty of gold in China. It's no secret how much gold they import. It's no secret how much gold they mine. It's no secret how much gold trades on the Shanghai Gold Exchange. It doesn't end up necessarily on the People's Bank of China. One of the board of governors of the People's Bank of China said they have gold elsewhere in the country. They have gold at subsidiary banks. They have gold at other state-owned banks. They have gold at sovereign wealth funds, rich individuals. So keep in mind, we're just talking about central bank gold reserves. For whatever reason, it's a big issue for China because the gold pumpers make it. But all you have to do is look over at the Reserve Bank of India, and no one makes the same, because they just haven't thought of it yet, I suppose. No one makes the same argument that the Reserve Bank of India is lying. They only list 600 tons. Yeah, because that's what's at the Reserve Bank of India. The rest of the gold is held at temples and individuals around the country. But there you can see Central Bank of Russia gold reserves. But let's take a look at what they added recently before we move on to the comparisons. Here is that monthly chart I was talking to you about. Now, it's not unusual for the Central Bank of Russia to add 1 million ounces, 30, 40 tons of gold, or more than 1 million ounces, a month to reserves. You can see a couple of months they didn't add gold. Last month, March, that they reported on. Obviously, April isn't through yet. They report every month around the 20th on the prior month's gold acquisitions. And you can see they added 500,000 ounces, or about 15.5 tons. That's not unusual. It's a little on the light side. So far this year, we're behind the pace of last year. But you never know. Maybe next month, the month after that, the month after that, they may pop another 1 million ounce month. They've already got February was like that. December and January were low, as you can see. But still a very consistent gold acquisition policy by the Central Bank of the Federation of Russia. Now, let's compare the Chinese gold acquisitions versus the Russians. And this is a chart I had done a couple years ago, and I stopped keeping it because the People's Bank of China stopped buying gold. But during the 1 year period from November 2015 through November 2016, when both countries were reporting gold acquisitions, and you can see in November, China didn't report anything. During that time period, Russia outdid China by a wide margin. They added about 122 more tons of gold to reserves than China did during just that 1 year period. But let's look at more recently. Since China has announced that they've been adding gold back to reserve since December of 2018, still, they're not adding gold to the same rate that the Central Bank of the Federation of Russia has been adding gold. In December, both banks added about 9 tons of gold. In January, China added 11. As we mentioned, Russia took a bit of a breather in January with 6.2, but they came back strong in February with 31 tons. China again added 9, almost 10 tons of gold in February, the People's Bank of China. And in March, the most recently reported month by both countries, Central Bank of Russia added 15.5 tons, and the People's Bank of China added 11 tons. So, over that time period, it looks like Russia's added almost 20 tons more in just a 4-month period. China adding 42.3 tons, and Russia 62.2 tons. Now, I think this is the final chart, maybe. Let me just see what else we got here. Yeah. This is the real important chart. Just to put the central banks in perspective, and I could have added Chinese gold to this. But let's just look at 4 years worth of Russian central banks. Now Russia is the one that gets all of the plaudits. They're buying gold hand over fist. You hear that all the time. Not really in the grand scheme of things. They're not. They're buying gold more than any other central bank, more than 2x in many cases than other central banks, and they do buy consistently. But as I mentioned, the big gold buyer is not even the Russian central bank, and it's certainly not all those other small gold purchases. Poland's buying 30, 40 tons of gold in a year. So what? It's not that much. But here you can see what is a lot is India. This Indian gold demand as represented through gold imports, because they don't really have any gold mining. They love gold. They just don't have any within the confines. Well, they do. They have one gold mine that's kind of old. They might get that going again. But clearly the amount of gold that Indians and also Chinese individuals want cannot even be met by Chinese gold production. Chinese gold production is number 1 in the world, and they still import massive amounts of gold. But let's just look at Russia versus China. Now, the big deal is, the Reserve Bank of India bought 40 tons of gold in the last 6-7 months. So what? Look how much Indians consume in a given year. 779 tons, 947, 582, 901, 718. This is massive amount of gold. And this is on top of a government tax of 10% import duty. It doesn't include whatever gets imported illegally, which who knows what those numbers are. And it also is, not only is there a 10% import tax, there's a 5% jewelry tax. And despite this, Indians still buy this massive amounts of gold. Now, the other thing to consider, even though they buy this amount of gold price doesn't really move. That's my whole point about this nonsense that the United States doesn't have the gold at Fort Knox. It's just a made-up story, because It makes no sense because either the United States, if they don't have the gold, somehow that's some kind of tragedy. Look, if it mattered for the U.S. to have the gold, they would have it. Why wouldn't they? 2,600 tons of gold is only worth $90 billion. It's not hard to buy 2,600 tons of gold. India buys 1,000 tons of gold a year and nothing happens to the gold price. But that's just assuming that even so, that the United States doesn't have the gold they say they have. Even if you want to go ahead and believe that nonsense, believe the fantasy that the gold at Fort Knox doesn't exist, that it's been rehypothecated or stolen in the middle of the night. Well, if it was that important to replace it, and I don't even believe any of that, but let's say somehow that happened, and somehow that would put a big hole in the entire existence of the United States, because if anyone ever found out, it would be game over and game changer. Well, don't you think the United States can find $90 billion and buy 2,000 tons, 1,000 tons if they wanted to? Of course they could. Of course they don't need to because it's there. But if they needed to, and you say, well, it would affect the gold price. No, it wouldn't. By the way, the United States mines about 300 tons of gold a year. It could take it from there. It's easy for the U.S., if it wanted to, add to gold reserves, not replace the ones that are missing. They just don't bother because they don't want the world to think that somehow the value of the dollar is based on the gold reserves that it has. That's why they don't audit it. That's why they don't care about it. These gold pumper fantasies that somehow country with the gold rules, that's not true. And by the way, if you think he has the gold rules, yeah, in the 15th century that was true. The other thing is that if the United States wanted to have gold, the same people that push this narrative, the U.S. has no gold, also push the narrative that the world is de-dollarizing because the U.S. is the big bully, and what the U.S. does is it invades countries and steals their gold. Okay? Well, if it invades countries and steals their gold, then why wouldn't the U.S. have gold? Because all it does is go around and invades country and steals the gold and brings it back to Fort Knox. The whole story is ridiculous. But anyway, back to actual numbers and reality. India does. These are official numbers from India. There's no reason to doubt them. They're clearly underrepresenting because they don't include any smuggling that might go on to India. We have no idea how much that is. Point is that the amount of gold, physical gold, that flows into India is far in excess. It's 4 times the amount of gold that this massive record buying of Russian central bank does. So since this is 4 years here, 5 years here, 2014 to 2018, Russia added what it's literally shaking, which is a staggering amount for Russia. It is the largest amount of gold purchased by any central bank, but yet it's 1,074 tons in 5 years. And yet India's 5-year import numbers are close to 4,000 tons. So just keep it in perspective when your central banks are buying gold. That is all I need to know. And that is going to drive the price higher. No, it's not. There's a different reason for them buying gold. It's not going to drive the price higher. If anything's going to drive the price higher, it's going to be physical gold demand from India and China and perhaps other Western nations or Thailand or Turkey buying more gold or more jewelry. It's not going to be because central banks are buying gold. But that's what people like, because gold is real money. All right, I think that's it I think we got a lot of charts. Tomorrow I will have up on the Smaulgld website all of these charts for you to look at. Since these are all my charts, you can copy them too. The one you can is this one, which is the Shanghai Gold Exchange. This is from Nick Laird. Gold charts are us. A very good chart here, just showing that the price of gold, there is a bit of a premium generally for the most part in China, but not always. This chart tracks. Sometimes there's a 1% discount. Generally for since 2016, there's only been a premium up as high as 3% almost. 2017. Currently, it's under 1%. But you can imagine that if the gold that people buy in India and China is largely physical gold, you can imagine there's a premium for a number of reasons, because not necessarily because there's a shortage, but the handling of physical gold does require labor, does require shipping and so on. Most of the Western gold that's purchased is purchased in the United States, at least via ETF, and there's this click of a button, and it's not as much of a big deal, so you can imagine why the gold premiums are higher. All right, we're going to take a look at what you guys are thinking, saying, drinking, whatever you're doing right now, talking to each other, and see what you guys think of this Russian gold purchase. All right, let's see what we have. I just put up the Smaulgld donation information page. You go to smaulgld.com and you can get your Smaulgld Classic or Super Classic mug. Remember, when you order those two mugs, I send those out directly from Smaulgld headquarters with a personal note, and they go 2-day priority shipping. All of the other Smaulgld mugs, the beer steins, the beer mug, the pet bowls, the Smaulgld glass, the Smaulgld shot glasses, the This Guy mug, the Smaulgld Game Changer mug, all those are available at the Smaulgld store, and they get shipped out from the manufacturer. And all this, again, is available on Smaulgld.com, and all of the information on how to support Smaulgld or to become a Smaulgld patron or a Smaulgld subscribe star, or how to donate via PayPal or donate via Bitcoin, Litecoin. It's all also always listed below each video on this BitChute or YouTube, and it's always on the Smaulgld site. So I do appreciate those who do indeed support this channel, because remember, this channel is small and probably by nature is always going to be small, because we don't have the game over and game changer, and we don't talk about ridiculous things that are never going to come true but yet attract people's hopes and dreams, and so they come in the droves and they support those sites, not realizing they're just being taken advantage of, tugging at their emotions. I don't do that. I give you the facts as I know them. I'm not saying I have a monopoly on the facts, but I do try to give you unique analysis on them, and it may mean that whatever you use that information for may make you not feel excited about gold or silver or cryptocurrencies. That's not the point of the channel. It's not to get you excited about anything. It's to give you information. If you want to get excited over it, you can. If you think you want to discount it, you can. But again, there's no motive here to pump gold, silver, or cryptocurrencies or any particular narrative. Not to say I don't have my biases, but that's a different story. Okay. And Maple Hedge coins. We have the same people every. I like this. We have the same people every night, but we don't have a growing audience in any big way, and I'm not going to change how I present information just to gain an audience. And you know, some of the comments you get from some of these people who do their little drive-by and they see something and they're so steeped in whatever pumper narrative they have, they just say really inane and frankly moronic things, and I don't really want to get 10 times more subscribers if 9 out of 10 of them are going to be like that. I mean, they won't come anyway, because they're going to be turned off and they're going to be mad at whatever I'm saying. So, all right. Remember, I check out the comments based on if you put Smaulgld, Smaulgld. I mean, there's a lot of comments here, and I can't read them all, and sometimes they're not even, you don't even want me to read them all. So if you want my attention to comment on your comment or you have a question, put Smaulgld, and it gets highlighted in orange. All right, so you guys do have your internal conversations here. And I'm just scrolling along with a lot of people giving each other salutations. Phil says silver is on sale. Okay. Yes, and you can buy silver. It does help out the site. Anyone who wants to buy gold, this is not investment advice. But if you're going to, maybe not even based on anything you hear, or even if it's based on anything you see here, make sure that you do your own research. But if you're going to buy gold or silver, we have affiliate arrangements and links with SD Bullion, Money Metals Exchange, and Golden Eagle Coin. That's the other one. And you can visit those sites if you click on the links on the Smaulgld site or below this YouTube or BitChute, or sometimes I put the links over in the chat. You'll pay no more no less than if you visited those sites directly, but then you can compare pricing and shipping. And I do get a small commission. Remember, I don't have Google AdSense on here. I don't have YouTube ads, so you get just me pumping mugs and our not sponsors. They're really just affiliate links, and also through donations. So the site is not supported by ads, so I don't have to complain that YouTube is screwing me or they're demonetizing me. We don't have to worry about that. You only have to worry that I won't do it anymore, but that's a different story. Okay. Let's see. What else do we have? No Bernie tonight, huh? I don't have any Bernie. Bernie got kind of chased off. The only people that want to see Bernie, the majority, is if he's on there with me. Then only 6% of the sample said we would ever allow Bernie on again by himself. And as I told you, I was not happy with him on his own, telling you that you shouldn't buy anything from the Smaulgld site because it's supposed to be free. Franklin $50 used to be free. The government used to just print them so you can use them, mint them so you can use them, and now I'm trying to take advantage of you by selling them. That did not go over well with me, but what can you expect from Bernie? The 1% in this country got all the Franklin dollars. Half dollars. They should be free. All right. Here we go. Mint Mark SI. The first comment of the evening. Smaulgld, do you have numbers on how much gold people of the U.S. have bars, coins, jewelry, etc.? Yeah, the World Gold Council puts out numbers on jewelry demand in the U.S., and it's far, far higher than the amount of gold that is purchased through the U.S. Mint via American Gold Eagles, American Gold Buffaloes, and whatever commemoratives. I do cover, I should put it together again. I've covered it in the past. This year, the last couple of years, the gold sales and the silver sales of the U.S. Mint are way down. John Moore is here. He's talking about a not consensus. That's a big conference, but he's talking about the crypto conferences that are happening. All right, where are the mug charts? Yeah, Philip, I should do a chart. I do have enough data now. I have been selling mugs now for quite some time. I could analyze the data as to what the top selling mug is. I'm not sure whether it's the travel mug, the Smaulgld Super Classic mug, or the beer stein. I think those are the three most popular, but I'd have to check. There's decent numbers for all of them. All right, Fiona Whalen. Russia buys gold as an insurance against further sanctions like removing them from SWIFT. Absolutely. And because they have it. All right. Pershanti Girl is here. Maple Hedgehog. Smaulgld, thanks for what you're doing here and keep it up. Always a chilling time with level-headed folks. Yeah, one of the things I also noticed that a lot of the channels do, people do this on Twitter. They insist that they know Bitcoin's going to crash. Bitcoin's going to skyrocket, or gold is set to skyrocket. And the audacity and the arrogance of how they say it. And then it never happens. Whatever they say, whatever they predict, and they just repeat themselves. But I do notice people are attracted to someone who will say something totally confident, even if it's totally wrong. And they just always want to go back and listen to somebody who will assert. They won't give any reason or facts. They'll just assert something. Just because someone is assertive, he stands by his principles. Like, silver is the best investment. Say it for 10 years. Even if it's the worst investment. As long as he's standing by his principles and he's not lost his integrity because he still believes in silver. That to me, I'm not interested in that at all. That to me is moronic, to listen to somebody who's essentially wrong and maybe once in a while rationalizes why they're wrong, but never changes their opinion, but just insists that they are right. A lot of people like to hear that. The reason is, here's how it works. This is my little psychology for the evening. Someone tells you a narrative. They give you a story. It really is the same thing with the Russian hoax. They tell it to you, you believe it, you adopt it, and then it's very hard for you to understand that it's not true. So they keep feeding you the story and you keep saying, well, yeah, of course it's true. It's the old, I think it's Mark Twain who said it's a lot easier to dupe people than it is to convince. It's a lot easier to dupe people than it is to convince them they've been duped. It's very hard to go back and tell people who've been listening to Silver Pumpers for 10 years and explain to them, silver hasn't done really well in the last 10 years. Well, you'll see what? Better to be 20 years early than a day late. No, that's stupid logic. It's better actually for 20 years not to lose money and miss out on what's that term they use in economics? Opportunity cost. You could have been doing something else with your money instead of sitting on it for 20 years because someone on YouTube told you it's the best investment in the world. But you'll see, and you hear that all the time. and people want to believe it, and then it's the whole I still have integrity and I still believe in the silver story. Why are you in the Church of Silver? That you have to always believe in silver? Now we see it all the time, and I don't do that here. And I could change my mind on a lot of things. That's normal. Otherwise, you're cultish if you refuse to change your opinion. All right, what is Fiona? Did Bernie took the life of his own? Did you listen to it, Fiona? Did you hear the other night when Bernie did the entire show? He was going off on the 1% and the Andrea Ocasio-Cortez and everything should be free. He even said Ben Franklin should be chastised for inventing global warming, being the founder of climate change because of his damn kite. And he said he discovered electricity and it's led to all the problems we now have. Yeah, I didn't give... that was not in the show notes. I didn't tell him to say that. Yep. All right. Well, you guys have figured it out. I want to thank you for joining me tonight. And you can tell sane people about this show, or somebody, that you think would benefit from being in the group here with the Smaulgld mug stackers and game changers. But sometimes I get some of these people here and they try to tell me, what do you mean silver's not money? Russia, there was one the other day. The guy was saying, Russian central bank has silver. Yeah, they also... A country can have silver, it can have oil, it can have copper. It doesn't mean it's a monetary asset. If you look at the central bank of Russia's balance sheet, they don't list silver. Just because they store it in a vault doesn't mean it's a monetary asset. It's not listed as a monetary asset. A country can have copper reserves. The United States has strategic oil reserves. You won't find them listed on the balance sheet anywhere. They are an asset of the country. Doesn't mean, again, that silver is invaluable. But when people insist, there's two things they insist on. Gold and silver are money, period. And the only things that are worth anything are money. So in their mind, the only thing that's worth anything is gold and silver, which is stupid. It is. It's moronic. Because palladium has gone up higher than gold. Palladium is not money in any sense of the word. It's a commodity. So commodities can be worth more than money. And if silver is not even money and it's a commodity, they should be hoping for some ridiculous solar panel fantasy or whatever. All right. Let's see if there's anything else. If not, I'm going to give you I'm going to give you Maple Hedgehog Smoke. It's a confirmation bias. That is correct. I'm going to give you the... Fiona says, yes, I did listen. Resemblance was freaky in a good sense. Yep. All right, Maple Hedgehog is gone. I'm going to give you guys the Bernie 10-second countdown. If I don't hear from you after that, we're going to sign off and we'll see you tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll go through the news. We'll go through the Mueller report, fallout again. And we'll do the gold and silver prices and stories. And I got a lot of crypto stories for you as well. So, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1%, 0. Have a good night. And make sure that you do buy things from Smaulgld. Because even though he's a capitalist, he's a good guy. So support the Smaulgld channel.